If you use your 3D printer, you're not a maker. 3D printing is cheating. 3D printing takes zero skill, and 3D printing is using expensive software, letting the machine do the work while you don't use your brain. These are just a few of the recent comments I've seen on our channel about 3D printing. And I'm going to show you, in my opinion, why they're all wrong. What's up, you awesome geeks? I'm Brian. This is the Smuggler's Room, and in today's episode, we're going back to the pit. If you're new here, you've never heard of the pit, it's our crazy massive display case diorama project designed to look like a pile of crates, while inside is an exploration of model making, toy modification, and world building on an epic scale. As I mentioned, recent comments about the use of our 3D printer that was graciously provided by today's sponsor, Cheatytech, and their Cheatytech Plus 4 left me with a bit of an axe to grind. Don't get me wrong. If you run a YouTube channel, you have got to expect a fair amount of criticism, being corrected, and sometimes being attacked, and I'm okay with all of that. However, the comments around 3D printing somehow eliminating you from being a maker, or in one case being told that if I use a 3D printer for a project, I'm not using my brain because the machine does it all, well, I find that wildly incorrect. So I dove into my favorite 3D modeling software, referenced my favorite book of inspiration for our pit project, and used that massive gray matter in my skull, otherwise known as a brain, to design a new structure for this project. When designing the building, I wanted to achieve a couple of things. First, I wanted to expose the interior, as the building's going to sit in this position in the display case, and that will enable the viewer to walk up and see both inside and outside of the building. The other goal was to keep the overall exterior very simple. By simple, I mean keeping the details or features to a minimum to give the maker the freedom to build the details in any form they want. All of these pieces were then printed on our new Cheaty Plus 4, which is the sponsor of today's episode, and I cannot say enough great things about my experience with this printer. It was fast to set up, it was very easy to use, and it produced some great prints. The biggest thing for me, however, is that I don't feel I have to tinker with the printer. I don't have to modify or cut corners to get the results I'm looking for. The machine does exactly what I need it to do, and I can tell you I'm thrilled with the results I'm getting. We've provided details in the description on this printer, as well as links to the other Cheatytech products. They have been an absolute joy to work with. So if you're thinking about getting into 3D printing, or you want to upgrade, this is a great way to go. Thank you, Cheatytech, for sponsoring this video. Wait, step away from the keyboard. I know what you're going to say. I should have modeled in some registration pegs and holes, broke up the model so that it was easy to align and gluing would be a breeze. Go easy on the comments. I'm learning here. I used the wrong kind of magnets. Holes were too deep and too much hot glue. Like I said, I'm learning here. The next several steps I learned from my friend Steve at SKS Hobby Workshop. I'm leaving a link in the episode notes below to his episode where he goes into very specific detail on how all of this works. So when you finish watching this, go give that a watch and subscribe while you're there. That said, there are several steps that Steve developed to create concrete or stone texture on 3D prints. It's a combination of PVA glue, distilled water, and grout sand mixture. Big warning here, when you're doing this, make sure you wear a respirator and gloves. Grout contains silica, and that's not something you want to breathe in. We go through this process really quickly here in our video though, so be sure to check out SKS Hobby Workshop. Steve does an incredible job of taking you through step by step on how to do all of this, and the results you're going to get are incredible. Just wait and see. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit willy-nilly off script and talk about the painting process. I don't really know where I'm going with this. And that happens a lot in different projects, especially when it comes to painting and weathering. So I start out really timid, I pick a specific color, I start to work on it a little bit, and then as I start working on it, I start to get a sense for the consistency of the paint, the color I'm applying, in this case, the underlying brown grout, which I kind of like. It has a little darkness. But the reality is I need to cover this pretty well. So I've added a little water here. This is just house paint, and I'm just kind of working my way around it. Sometimes you have to try a few different tools until you find the one that really works. We're going to build a lot of layers of color on this piece. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when you dive into something like this, if you're anything like me, you start timid and then you build. Build layers, build complexity, build color. And then if you don't like it, if it doesn't turn out the way you want it, you can spray the whole dang thing a neutral color and start all over again. So don't be afraid. Okay, let's keep going. I've got a bunch of these little pieces of styrene cut, all roughly the same size. We're gonna make a band that goes around the doorway here. Next time I think I'll just design those in the 3D model. Here's a perfect example of using my brain again to 3D model something really detailed. Pieces that I can then resin 3D print to add to this project. You could easily kit bash or scratch build here as well. And if you take anything away from this project, it's simply this. Use whatever method will help you achieve the desired result you're after. You're not wrong, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. .3D model courtesy of our friend James of the Rebel Base Builds. Just feels like the right little touch up there. We've made some good progress on the entire exterior of this. There's a few things we need to address. It's the door, some details in here, and some other stencil details, but we'll do that in a bit. One thing I do want to do on this portion of the build is I want to work in the rock feature. All right, I tried to fill the gap before and it didn't really work out well, but now I've got this guy kind of sculpted in the right spot. So I think I'm going to glue him in place there, and then I'll use some plaster to tie him in. Okay, so we got a whole lot of various plaster rocks that I glued in place. So now we've got this structure here. I'm gonna go ahead and take some Sculpt-A-Mold. I'm gonna work in small batches, and I'm gonna fill in all the cracks and crevices. We're gonna make a little slurry here. So we've got some of the tile grout with some sand, a little black acrylic paint, and some matte Mod Podge. We're gonna mix all that up in a cup, and we'll give that a coat over the entire project. We got some water mixable oil paints, put them in a little tray, and we're mixing that up with a bit of some mineral spirits to create a variety of washes. This first wash here is primarily raw umber and a little black. And the goal is just to get into some of these nooks and crannies and provide a little wash over the top. So the wash, it's toned some of it down, some of the blue and whatnot, just adds a little more realism to it. And now we're gonna use a couple of different paints from Archive X. We got the Alliance White and the Lettering Gray. We're gonna use this to do some dry brushing and bring out some of the details. Now you can see some of that detail where the rock texture starts to pop with just a little bit of that dry brushing. What can I say? I'm absolutely thrilled with how this is coming along. I'm glad I didn't listen to those that claim that 3D printing is not making, because that's not how I feel about it, and I don't think you should either. I hope you agree that we showed why they were wrong about this project and using 3D printing. At the end of the day, the hobby of creating things should be what brings you joy. So whatever tool you have or want to use to make the things you want to make, that's all that matters. I want to give thanks to our amazing Patreon community. We don't thank them enough on the channel, and they truly are the reason that this project is happening and why you're still seeing us make content for you. If you want to help us make bigger and better content, please consider joining. You can find the links to our Patreon in the description below. As for me, I've got a lot of work to do. I mean, this thing doesn't even have a door yet. But if you want to see that, or where we go from here, then you'll have to come back the next time we build something out of nothing.